So a little bit about Deb. For the past few months, Deb has been contributing articles to our newsletter, giving us so much valuable information that I thought that this would be a great thing for her to share with us. Deb has an MBA and is a nationally certified HR professional with many certifications. She's a certified professional coach and is highly experienced recruiter for over 30 years experience. Recently, she admitted that she interviews applicants 7 days a week for her various clients. A former university and community college human resource management professor at UMass Dartmouth and Bristol Community College, she's on the business advisory board at UMass Dartmouth and will be teaching there at the Capstone Strategic HR Management course in 2023. Is it this year or is it 2024? Did I get that right?
No, my course kicks off January 1st, 2024.
2024, so it's coming. These are but a few of her many accomplishments. Today, she's been a successful recruiter, HR consultant, business owner of Right Fit Recruiting for over 7 years. I'm so happy to have her here to give us some of her wisdom and to answer your questions. If you have questions, please put them in the chat and we'll answer them at the end of the session. Does that sound good to you, Deb, or do you want them to speak right
Either
up?
way, I'm okay too if you want to just, start me and ask questions as we go.
Great. So please welcome Deb Pammy.
Thank you so much, Pam. And thank you everybody for joining. So I will kind of try to pick up the pace here because of our time that we lost. So what I want to do is give you some tools, for your toolbox or bag in creating a great dental office culture. And this could be not just for the dental industry, it could be for any industry. I have sprinkled in and embedded some HR, some academics, really what we teach in HR management. So it is evidence-based. I do pay attention to surveys and Society of Human Resources Management. So I do like to look at, what are the studies and the surveys telling us? And then we can infer some initiatives that we can do to actually improve our culture. So let me just dive in. So let's just talk about culture first. Whether you deliberately create one or work on your culture, developing your culture or not, you definitely have one. A lot of organizations have a culture by default, right? They're not necessarily working on it, but they definitely have a workforce and a workplace culture. And what is it? Just, to put some definition on it or around it, it's really the DNA of your organization. And it's absolutely critical, that first bullet, to attracting and retaining employees. So when I recruit for practices, one of the first questions I do ask is, give me 3 words to describe your culture. And sometimes that's hard for business owners to do, and for practice managers and associates to do. But you definitely have a culture. You need to know what it is, because that's what we need to project to the world. And your culture, it definitely has to be employee and company focused. That's really important, because both employees and candidates can tell if it's not employee focused. So here's a slide that you can kind of look back at and sort of put tick marks to the left of those bullets, just to see where you're at. Does your culture offer these things? Because this is what candidates are looking for today. I'm not going to read them all, but in general, these are the questions that they're asking. Is your practice technologically savvy? If you're using outdated versions of the software, that's definitely a question that candidates ask today. They want to know, they want the same experience as a customer, right? We want to be able to go to our phone, pick something, order it, and have it delivered the next morning. We want that seamless, wonderful, super fast experience as a customer, but we want that same experience as an employee today. So if you've got a clunky software program, and your processes, in terms of your work processes are clunky, that's something that employees are paying attention to, and they really want the good experience. Of course, work-life balance and interest in well-being. Candidates ask for that, frequently. Do they want to work 9 to 7? Not many. And I picked 9 to 7 because some of the practices we recruit for have a schedule of 9 to 7, which is the most difficult position we will have to fill because of those set of hours. So people are definitely paying attention to work-life balance, and they want flexibility in scheduling, lots of flexibility. The more you can offer multiple types of work schedules, the better off you're going to be in attracting candidates. If you're offering one work schedule, very fixed and rigid, that's not going to be attractive to candidates. So on this particular slide, I'd like you to just print it out, sort of think about your own workforce culture. What do you offer? Because you want to offer as much of what's on this slide as possible. Some general characteristics of a good workplace culture: obviously caring leaders, easygoing. And what I mean by that is no one wants to work in a high stress level 8 hours a day. That's just going to fatigue people, and it fatigues them mentally as well as physically. So if it's, if the pace is sort of beyond fast pace, if it's a high stress environment, working on that and trying to reduce that stress level in the office is definitely a worthy initiative. You're going to hear this on the bullet number 3, regularly solicit feedback from employees, listen to feedback. You're going to hear this throughout this presentation. It is a theme, is participation. People want to be involved. They want to bring their brain as well as their body to work. And you've got to, though, build in systems within the office so that they can be heard and they can feel that they're making an impact, because that is important to people. So looking at more programmatic measures that you definitely want to put in to create the good work environment: comprehensive onboarding and mentoring program. Those two things are critical to not losing a first-year employee. First-year employees, according to SHRM, are 4 times more likely to defect and leave the organization than employees who have been there for a year or more. So those are your vulnerable group. So what you want to do is have this comprehensive onboarding and mentor program. That's where you want to spend a lot of attention. And a lot of times it's, somebody's hired, they're put with an individual to train them, and that's as far as it goes. So if you can build a good onboarding and mentoring program, and I definitely recommend checklists. I recommend that you put down in writing what you want that onboarding to look like. And the only way it's going to be consistently employed is if you have a checklist. But many people don't do that. And again, it's then sort of a haphazard onboarding or mentoring program. Same thing. Daily morning huddles, I'm assuming that you have those. Most practices do, but they are definitely key. Monthly or bi-weekly staff meetings. And what I want to focus on here is the rich and lively discussion with focus on process improvement and staff participation. So that's the most important. I do know that a lot of practices have weekly or monthly staff meetings, but they don't have the rich and lively discussion with the focus on process improvement and staff participation and decision making. That's the secret sauce. That's what you want to work on, and think about that with your own meetings. Creature comforts, and when I say creature comforts, if I've seen practices with lunchrooms that are in the closet, and really not inviting. Really, the physical space is important. There are many, many studies that the physical space that individuals work in does impact productivity, it impacts engagement, and it then impacts retention. So you want to look at your physical spaces and what does that say? Because it does speak volumes to employees. Daily contact with each employee. I'm assuming that you do have that, in assigning work, training, mentoring, ensuring that the folks that you work for every day are engaged and focused on performing the tasks at hand. Make sure you provide training sessions. And this has to be done deliberately, whether it be twice a year or annually. You want to provide training sessions. And that's something, like I said, that you have to plan. Because training just doesn't happen without that planning. A lot of people who run businesses say, yeah, we provide training, but what they mean is sort of the everyday on the job training. Well, that's different than we're really going to have a vendor come in. We're going to have some formal training, more dedicated. You definitely want to provide something like that. Make sure there's some sort of recognition program within your practice. And that could be gift cards, it could be attaboys, it could be publicizing, the good deeds and those who went above and beyond within your practice. It could be monetary as well. It doesn't have to be. What it does have to be, a couple of things. You have to have public recognition. You're not going to give recognition in the closet. Recognition just with one person, only one person knows, you've kind of defeated the purpose. Recognition is supposed to duplicate the good deeds, right? So that if you have a workforce of 10, you want others to engage in the same great behavior that one employee was recognized for. So it has to be public, and it should be personal, personalized. I had one of my clients give Bose headphones. The CEO gave Bose headphones to an employee who took the time to listen to a customer and save the business, because the customer was going to defect, was going to leave and go to another vendor. But because he listened to what the customer had to say, he saved the account. And the CEO gave the employee a set of Bose headphones. And now that is going through the entire company, and others are now listening to their customers intently to see if they could find out, what it is that they need to do to keep that customer happy. I definitely recommend some sort of feedback mechanism for performance for employees, whether you do quarterly job scorecard reviews. Those are simple scorecards, maybe 4 or 5 categories that everybody is scored on, but it is job specific, or annual performance reviews. People need feedback. Without feedback, they tend to start initiating their job searches. We need feedback. Job design. I want you to think about job design. And this, not many people think about this when you think about, okay, a great workforce culture. They think, well, let's have parties and let's have sort of perks and benefits. And it's not all about that. There are things we can do that really don't cost anything, but you can build in engagement in your job design. And this is, again, I told you I embedded some HR theory into this presentation because I think evidence-based material, we can jump off of this. We can learn and we can use this evidence-based. So Hackman and Oldman are well known in the HR community as providing 5 core elements that need to be built into a job to make us happy, essentially. What they did was they looked at how do you motivate people who do standard repetitive tasks all day, Okay, well, in a dentist's office, you are doing repetitive tasks. In many industries, you're doing repetitive tasks. So they develop some theories they believe improves the satisfaction of the employee, and then productivity, and then engagement, and then retention. So it kind of flows. So let me just show you what they came up with. What they came up with is the most satisfied, productive employee, and just look at these three because these are key: meaningfulness of the work performed, responsibility for the outcomes, and they have knowledge of the results of the work performed, i.e. that's your feedback loop. That's feedback. So, okay, we need three things here. So let me show you what they ultimately came up. When you design a job, you want to try to build in these 5 core elements. And think about each of your jobs, and think about the extent of which each of your jobs has some of these 5 elements. One is skill variety. Okay, that makes sense to me. We like variety in our day. So think about the jobs that you have and whether there's variety in their roles. Task identity. Can I identify sort of a job that shows me completion from beginning to end? I shared with Pam the other day that I interviewed a candidate who told me just this. I ask always my first question, why are you looking to leave your current employer? That's a critical question. I learned so much. Well, what I learned from this one candidate was, well, because I'm only doing my little piece of work, and that's all I do, 8 hours a day, and I have no job satisfaction whatsoever. I'd like to be able to do from beginning to end so I can go right through to the end of the process. I'd have more job satisfaction. He told me exactly task identity. And of course, I was thinking of these 5 core characteristics in the back of my mind. Task significance. The job I do has to make an impact either on my patient or on the office, how the office runs, or on others. I have to make an impact. We want to feel that what we're doing is significant. Autonomy. Make sure that you build some autonomy into your jobs. So there's some freedom and some independent discretion or decision making in the work that they're doing. People like to have the ability to make decisions. And then, of course, again, another theme, feedback, feedback, feedback. We want to know how we did, that what we did made an impact, a positive impact, either in the day or the overall profitability of the organization. So think about those 5. And you'll get this, so you can keep this and kind of look at each job that you have, whether it be a front desk, assistant, hygienist, associate. Think of each job that you have to make sure you have these 5 characteristics to some degree built into those jobs. You can also think about job rotation. This is, again, still from the research from Hackman and Oldman, that if you can build in job rotation so that you have some cross training as well, right? There's a benefit for the practice, not just for the individual. That obviously helps alleviate boredom, as well as some carpal tunnel type injuries or musculoskeletal type issues. People tend to have higher job satisfaction. And job enrichment is really anything that makes that work, that job, more rewarding and satisfying by adding more meaningful tasks and increasing the autonomy of the employee. So think about each one of your jobs. And I can give you an example. Kate Almeida, who is part of my company, she's not here today and couldn't be here today, but she worked as front desk, she worked as an assistant, she worked as a hygienist for many, many years, and actually ended up training hygienists. And she was given the responsibility to order all supplies for the entire office. I mean, her job was a hygienist, and she was a very good one, but she took on the role of ordering all supplies, And the individual, one of the assistants, also took on the role of organizing the stock room. And they had quite an elaborate labeling system in the stock room, where it was, extraordinarily easy to find anything. And she took great pride in that stock room management. So, building in different aspects into a job that, those roles aren't typically in that job. The leader sets the tone for the practice, so think about yourself. Employees are looking for honest, trusting leadership. I do hear that as well when I interview. They can't trust their leadership team. You wouldn't think you'd hear that, but I do. That surprises me. A leader who is receptive to new ideas, respects employees as partners in the organization's success. So those are the kind of characteristics for yourself. More strategies, and this is again this idea of participation. You definitely want to have employees take control of their work tasks and improving work processes. You want to know how they can improve work processes. Tap on their shoulder, ask what they think, because people do want to contribute in that way. Access to information. This is important. So people need to have access to the information to help improve the work processes and to help perform their jobs. There's this old sort of model of controlling. It's really a command and control type old school model, where information is held tightly at the top of the organization. But the more information you share, the more employees can participate. And the more they will be empowered. So think about information access within your own practice. Think about how employees are held accountable. That kind of goes back to your performance reviews. You definitely want to have those, not only for feedback, but to hold them accountable. Teamwork. Think about teamwork within your office, because obviously teamwork is important. Teamwork is important to relationships in the office practice. Listening and clarification, active listening. Some people know how to do good active listening, others don't. You definitely want to actively listen. And to actively listen, you listen to the content and you listen to the feeling. So both what the person is saying and how they are feeling, and you feed that back to them. Sort of paraphrasing what they told you. So it sounds like you're upset that you have to do more work because the part-timers don't hold up their end of the bargain and complete their jobs on a daily basis because they don't work full-time. Yes, that's exactly how I feel. I gave you content and I gave you feeling. That's what active listening is. And working as a team to help with patient loads where folks jump in for each other. Yeah, disagreement is not a bad thing. It's natural and expected, and people need to feel that they can bring up opposing opinions respectfully, and that is okay. So when you have good teamwork, you will have some disagreement, but that's not something to be shied away from. You kind of want to welcome that, and you kind of work through those opposing opinions. Acceptance, where team members value one another as individuals, and think about your own team and think about whether they do. And quality, and emphasis by the leaders on continuous improvement and attention to detail. Make sure that you do have ground rules for your teams, whether that be, to give you an example, your daily huddles or your staff meetings. A ground rule is we will not allow folks to interrupt others. That's a ground rule. So please let everyone finish whatever it is that they were saying, but we abide by that particular ground rule. Top organizations, interestingly enough, train employees on teamwork. They hold annual or semi-annual sessions on teamwork. And you got to wonder why that is. Why are these big companies, granted they have big budgets, but why do they spend the time and the money training on teamwork? Well, because multiple polls and multiple surveys have found that those with positive work relationships expend more effort on the job, are more productive, are more engaged, and have higher productivity and retention. So all that is why these big companies spend time on teamwork. So think about that for your own practice. Do you do anything once a year on a teamwork, whether that be teamwork training, where you can have consultants or trainers come in and teach people on teamwork? Not everybody has had any training on teamwork. Or you have off-site events, which can be organized by a consultant or a trainer as well. More strategies for employee empowerment, job crafting. That happens when you fit a job to an employee's interests and strengths. So the example I gave you, where the individual dental assistant also took charge of the stock room, she had, one of her strengths was organization skills. She loved it. So we kind of, crafted her job based around her interests and strengths. So think about that. A lot of administrative assistants, front desk staff end up planning activities. They end up doing the marketing. They end up doing scheduling for business meetings, catering. They end up doing a lot of different functions because that's their natural strength. Again, this is another repetitive theme: involving employees in decision making, giving them power to act, increases employee engagement. And that is definitely what we want. It's, again, how you build into the job and how you build into your work processes. Engaged employees are employees who consistently perform at high levels and are enthusiastic about the work, and they're always looking for more or better ways of doing things. And that is what we want in the practice. And what you bring to the table: an energy, an upbeat tempo, a cooperative spirit, and a motivating force. So that's how you can generate some increased engagement in your office. And I know that maybe had to do with, patients who cancel and all kinds of, dilemmas that you have to work through in the course of your day, but you still have to be that upbeat tempo as a leader. We know engaged employees are enthusiastic and immersed in their work, and that's what we want. And remember this: employees don't stay at a place where no one sees their value. So that's your task. That's your job, is to make sure that every person who works for you knows that you see their value. And how do you do that? So you think about that. You can use some of these tactics that I've given you today and these tools and tips, but think about that yourself with every person who works for you. What I've just covered with you secretly is from David Nadler, who was an organizational theorist, a business consultant, and he has written many books. And what he developed was something called a high performance work system. And this is what I just covered for you today. It's a combination of the HR practices, work structures, job design, but what it is intended to do is enhance employee skill, knowledge, commitment, involvement, and adaptability. And this is the model that you just learned, paraphrased by Deb. Nobody likes to look at a text. This is from a textbook, by the way. It is from an HR textbook. So this was your HR class on a Friday morning. It is evidence-based. There is something to it. There is a science behind it, right? In a lot of cases, you think that, well, again, you think, well, how do I build an engaging workforce, an engaging workplace? It's again, not just sort of perks and benefits and parties and pay. I didn't say pay at all today. Interestingly enough, a high performance work system doesn't have anything to do with that. But it's all of this that I talked about today. So you'll have this, you'll have the presentation to refer back to, and try to embed as many things as possible, as many concepts in this presentation as possible. I welcome questions. We have just 8 minutes for them, but I would welcome any questions or thoughts or comments really on this model. I'm not sure you signed up for this academic course, or loaded with theory, but I'd be interested in knowing what you think.
I like what you said about like asking why you left, because when we have a new patient call in, we ask them, why did you leave your last dentist? And it tells us a lot. Like maybe the reason was, oh, they couldn't get me in for cleaning for 6 months. Well, we're at that point, so maybe I would make sure that I would sneak him in somewhere else so that wouldn't piss him off.
Right. And you know what, Kim, that's a great and very insightful point, because when I interview, I know what the practice needs and wants. And sometimes the candidate tells me exactly the situation that you are in. The candidate tells me exactly what I am selling. And I'm like, well, that's not going to work, because they left for the very reason. I still have that reason here.
Right.
So we move on, but it's the most informative question. I learn from candidates. When you talk to 50 people in a week, you're going to learn something. Listen.
Do you have any hygienists available, Deb?
I'm sorry?
Do you have any hygienists available right now?
We are recruiting for about 8 hygienist positions. I guess my question is, it all depends on the location. It depends on your paying,
I'll give you a
your
call.
culture, your, what does Glassdoor look like for your practice, Kim? That's one of the first things we do when we take on a client. We look at Glassdoor. What do people say about this practice, first of all? Because
check us out. We're good.
Okay. Okay.
We have 3 hygienists that have been there over 25 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I don't know how their backs do it.
Well, you're doing something right. That's for sure.
Deb, there are a few questions in the chat.
Okay. I can't see them.
Okay. Somebody has asked, how can we offer a bonus for employees not using the sick time intentionally? Meant state sick time offer that some employees feel entitled to get paid anyway.
Well, on that one, I have to say, talk to your legislators. It's 5-day sick time in Massachusetts. Employers really cannot try to develop disincentives for using those 5 days. That's really not allowed. They can use those 5 days. If employees are taking time beyond the 5 days, I mean, obviously you can counsel them and go through the process, the disciplinary process with them, but you really can't put in anything to disincentivize the use of the mass 5 days. I don't know that you were asking about after 5 days or within 5 days.
I think they were talking about like getting paid for the ones they didn't use, right?
Okay. I mean, some businesses do that. Some businesses do pay for the ones that they don't use at the end of the year. There's no carryover. It's a use it or lose it in Massachusetts. Do I think that that's good or bad? I mean, there's downstream effects to doing that. It's just really a choice whether you want to do that. Just know that, once you start doing that, really there's no turning back, right? When you give a benefit, that's it, really. For you to years later retract that benefit would be very, very difficult. So just make sure it's well thought out if you want to, pay for the unused time. Most of the employers that I deal with don't do that. It's basically use it or lose it, the 5 days.
Person added that they'd like ideas and suggestions to discuss in the morning huddle. It's 40 hours per year max. There is carryover. Law says they can use it next year. This is what they're writing.
Yeah, no, they can't use it next year unless you allow a carryover.
Okay.
I think what I would do, I guess I asked the question, did this question come up because there's an attendance issue in the practice?
He said the morning, or that person, I don't know, male or female.
That's a separate question.
Yeah, morning has a separate question. They're asking for money.
I don't know what that means. They're asking for money.
Are you able to unmute the person that's asking these questions? Yeah.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Good morning, Dr. Madani.
Good morning, my dear Debra. So nice to see you.
Same here.
I did ask, thank you for a great presentation. I loved it. I took my notes. That's awesome. So I had 2 different questions. Number one, I do have this poster in my office that says employees are entitled to the sick hours, up to 40 hours per year. Every 30 hours is 1 hour.
Yes.
And then I do have some employees who are feel entitled, just like their vacation pay, that they need to count on it, and they come up with all kind of excuses. My dog was sneezing, or whatever excuses they come up to, because obviously that poster does not say they have to present any doctor's note or anything, and they also poster says they can use it for next year. It is carryover. So what I understand from that poster, it says that it's up to 40 hours per year, 30 hours, 1 hour for every 30 hours, and it is a carryover, and they don't have to present the doctor notes. I do have a copy of it, unless things has changed that I don't know. But that's a very vague and unfair law. That's one question. And number 2 question was that if you can possibly present, or even after this meeting, ideas about morning huddle, things that can be mostly useful and discussed in the morning huddles. These are my two questions.
So, for morning huddle, obviously you're, and I assume you're doing this already, you're looking at the order of the day, right? The schedule for the day, looking at both from a patient perspective plus staffing, right? Who do you have to carry you through the day? You're initially looking at, you don't really have time in the morning huddle to do work process improvement. So I usually have those in monthly staff meetings or bi-monthly staff meetings where you work on work process improvement. Let's look at our patient experience, maybe a patient experience improvement committee or work initiative. But the morning huddle is really more about the day and what's going to happen for the day. How are you going to make it through the day given the overflow of patients or patients that are canceling, that type of thing. And then having plans about, well, what would happen if we get more patients or more patients call out. So it's more about the order of the day, your morning huddle, than anything else. And then
awesome.
you save the monthly or the bi-weekly staff meeting for work process improvement initiatives, and just to see what employees think about how the month is going, what ideas and thoughts they have. So that's the second one. The first one, Dr. Madani, Um,
Can I say what my handbook says, Deborah?
Oh, yeah.
So what ours is, so like you said, you earn 1 hour for every 30 hours. So you can carry it over to the next year, but you still can only take 40 for the whole year. So in January, you have 0. So if you carried a couple over because of the year before, you can use something in January because you didn't accumulate anything January 1st, you have 0 sick time. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yeah, no, that
Yeah.
does make sense. And I think
So
that
like you have to
kind of
accumulate it
aligns
every
with,
day to make that 1 hour. So you can carry those over for like January and February. That's what my handbook says.
yeah,
But you still only get 40 every year.
right.
Okay.
Right. You can't end up with 80 or what have you because you carried over for the last 5 years.
Yes, Deborah, I did not understand that 5 days a week. I was not familiar with that. I knew about the 40 hours max and 1 hour for 30. What was that 5 days you mentioned earlier?
No, I'm referring to the 40 hours.
Yeah.
40 hours, I see.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. And
understand
we should definitely refer to it as hours because, people can use it in small increments. And Dr. Madani, you said that sometimes they're tapping into that mass sick time for their dog, but that doesn't qualify. So if somebody were, asking to use it and take time off 4 hours for their dog, that definitely does not qualify.
I was using as maybe more of a like a joking, but what I mean is that I've had employees saying that my asthma was acting, or I had a cold, or
Right.
and I obviously the state that posted says you don't even have to ask them for anything in writing. So they said, look, this is a very, very, to me, is very unusual law that people saying that, well, I can just call sick and get paid. Why do I have to go to work?
Right. No, I hear you. And you're right. You can't ask, you can ask after 3 days, 24 hours. So if they're out for, 24 hours, you can ask for a doctor's note, but it's the 1 or 2 days that you can't ask for the doctor's note. And yeah, I agree with you, Dr. Madani. I think that more states are going this direction though.
Yeah, but on the state leave, it has to be an application put through the state. So it's not for short term, like you can't put it in for 3 days. It goes a process, you put it through the state, the employee files the application, their doctors have to validate it, then it goes to your company to approve that you agree or disagree. And then the state makes a recommendation, and at that point, they'll either approve or disapprove the PFML. So
yeah,
it's
that's
not like
PFML that goes beyond the 5 days.
You just can't use it short term. That's what your 40 hours of sick time is for.
Right.
So I think it's a misunderstanding.
Yeah, that sick time is some employees, they feel entitled to, in addition to we offer vacation pay, but they said, look, if I get 2 or 3 weeks vacation, I also have 40 hours of sick time, and they can easily call sick. And they said, I was just sneezing, or my asthma was acting, or wasn't feeling good, and then you still have to pay them.
Exactly. And I think what we did as a company and our organization is we allow them to use their sick time as flex time. So I would prefer someone plan, and so they don't feel like they're gonna get gypped, that they plan if they wanna go to a doctor's appointment, take the full day, or if they need to take care of a parent on that day, whatever the case is, or if they wanna have a mental health day and sit on the beach, as long as they plan ahead, I approve their sick time. And it increases morale because they can use it. They don't feel like they got to give it back at the end of the year, but it also helps with staffing, so we can plan our staffing ahead of time and not have a call out. Our company, I have 100 employees, and we have very few sick call outs because we allow this process. And if they call out, if they call out, we know they're sick.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know that, Dr. Madani, that's kind of, that's a more liberal policy than you're offering now. So what she's talking about is some companies allow employees to use that 40 hours of sick time for personal time as well. And that's more liberal, that's employee friendly, and that is exactly what she's doing. and she's, you know, she's describing that there's a benefit to her company and to the employees. She's benefited from it, but most companies do not do that. It's 5 days, 40 hours for sick time, only for the reasons of sick time that are described in that you know, in the law. But some companies are more liberal and say you can also use the 5 days for personal.
Yeah, well, I don't think that taking a mental health day is not a sick day, because mental health should be in everybody's forefront. And if somebody needs a day to take care of themselves for mental health reasons, we should oblige before it becomes a bigger problem. So I don't look at it as they're just going to use it as a vacation day. They're using it to take care of themselves. I'd rather them take one sick day than go to their doctor and say, I am so stressed, and then PFML gives them 26 weeks off, paid. So you got to be careful how you're balancing it, guys.
I think on the next slide, we all have to come as employees, not employers. Ms. Panis, thank you so much. That was an awesome presentation. I have a patient. I need to go, but that's awesome. Looking forward to see you soon. Thank you for offering this.
Thank you, Dr. Madani.
Of course, you have a great day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
So also, Deb, they asked if they could get a copy of the presentation. It was great.
Thank you so much, guys. I hope you got something out of it. Just even if you take 2 little nuggets out of it, use them.
Well, could I ask a few questions to the people that attended? 8 o'clock on a Friday morning used to be when we met for Dental Managers Society. So that's why we kind of chose it. Was this a good time, or do you have a better time where you think other people would attend to?
Good for me.
What's it? This
I don't
work?
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, in my office, they suggested maybe over a lunch break.
Deb was saying that today too. Yeah.
Just because, you know, we could get more people involved.
So do you think like noontime or 1 o'clock? What would be better for you for that type of a situation? I'm going to send out a survey too.
I was just going to say, Pam, I think a survey on what time most offices take their lunch break might be, you know, out of my 9 offices, I have 1 that takes it at 12 and 8 that takes it at 1. So I think it's you know, a preference of it. I think it's great that we do the recording and they can watch later, but I think if we did something like this, you know, we could get our you know, the managers, assistant managers, even some front office or head lead DAs involved in some of the presentations to increase the participation and maximize the value of what we do.
Great idea. Thank you.
Can I ask, in terms of topics, most of my speaking is on recruiting, because that's what I'm being asked to do most of the time, is recruiting, helping finding staff and helping position the practice with a better employer brand so they can attract more folks. Is that topic, or that and orientation? How do I implement a top-notch orientation program? Are those 2 topics more of interest than the topic that I covered today?
No, I think it's a balance, and I think it's a step-by-step program. And I think what might really even be would be advantageous before you do the orientation is a presentation on interviewing and how to interview, how to screen candidates, and how to interview. I think that's a missed skill on a lot of people's wheelhouse. And even as managers, you know, pre-COVID, I think we had very little exposure to it. We had team members that were staying. All of a sudden, COVID hit, and people are trying to choose the right employee, you know, team member, and yet they don't know how to interview or how to screen, or what questions might they ask to make sure that the person that they're getting is going to be a fit. So then there's turnover, and then you're redoing it, and then you go, my God, I didn't pick the right person. What did I do wrong? And I think if we had gone over something like that in a series of questions
Okay,
and screening, that might be beneficial.
okay, that's, I actually have a lot of requests for that, so I'm glad that you mentioned it.
Mm.
We can do that.
You know,
And
and I think from there, it's when you get an employee, and it could all maybe even be on one, is that when you do get an employee, what type of orientation do you put in place to set them up for proper success?
Right.
that's you, isn't it, Elizabeth?
It
Behind-
is.
Okay, I see you
Pam.
said Emily, but I recognized your voice, so I said, oh.
I know, I can't see her.
Oh, here I am.
There you go.
Oh, okay, good. Oh, the whole time, this is,
I've been sitting, my team has been sitting in the chairs that are in view, and I sat in the other one, but yes.
okay, great. That's
Good
really
to see
helpful.
you.
Very, very good.
Thank God I have a team that can pivot, because I walked in this morning and I said, hey guys, there's this awesome webinar I signed up for. Can you guys join? It's about culture and team culture. And that's a big thing in our organization, is creating culture and a positive culture, living our core values. And we do quarterly evaluations based on core value and job performance.
Oh my God, you're so far ahead.
And so I wanted them to join in, because sometimes it's you pick up the pearls, right, from something like this, you can carry it over, but it also validates what you do is the right thing that we're doing. And that's key right there.
Gosh, you're an HR superstar. Wow, this is
She
so good.
always offered lots of great information when she came to the meetings.
I know, I missed the meetings, Pam.
Me too, I know. But we're trying to replace them with something like this.
That's great.
And, I think that we can kind of, start this way.
I'm all in.
Thank you. Are you getting the newsletter?
Yes, of course.
Great, okay. I just want to make sure that I'm following you to your practices.
Oh, yes. Oh, no, you are.
All
You
right.
are. All
Thank you.
9 of them. I
Anybody
take the
wants to
tips and
take
the
my
pearls and I
HR
put them-
class next year, you're welcome to sign up at UMass.
Yes. And that's
Everything you
pretty
want to know about
exciting.
HR.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Pam. Thank you, everybody.